Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Kelly, OMD, your board certified OBGYN and healthcare executive here to help you live your healthiest and wealthiest life. Tonight, we have a special guest coming on, future Dr. Alberto Gomez. And the reason why we say future is because he is on his path to his PhD. But really, the reason why we have him here is because he's going to talk to us about applied psychophysiology. You may ask, what is that? Of course, he's going to go over that. But what's really important is the word applied. And you know, in Viva Life, we take action. So there's going to be an ask at the end of this. And we hope that many of you will get involved or spread the word so you can get involved. So, Dr. Alberto, tell us the top 3 things you want us to take away tonight before we get started. Go ahead.
So, hello everyone, first of all. And so tonight, what I really want everybody to take it away is what is applied psychophysiology, what is it used for, and how I'm currently using it for my study, my dissertation study.
And I'm sure everybody's like, applied psychophysiology. You can break those words down and say, you know what, I know what each one of those means. But the wonderful thing about Dr. Alberto Gomez, future, is that he's going to take it away by explaining to us what it is in somewhat of detail, understanding that we have a short amount of time here, but really how it's going to make a significant impact in your lives. So, Dr. Gomez, take it away.
All right, so I'll start with applied psychophysiology. So, applied psychophysiology is the field of study where they look at psychological processes and how they affect the biology, the physiology of individuals. So what that means is the things that we go through, the things that are going through our minds, right? Our thoughts, our feelings, how they can affect and change our biology and our physiology in terms of heart rate, breathing, and in more general aspect, our nervous system, our autonomic nervous system, which is broken up into those 2 parts, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, the fight or flight, stress response, and the rest and digest. So applied psychophysiology, what it uses are devices called biofeedback devices. These devices are devices that some of us just carry with us already, right? So our Apple Watches, our Fitbits, these devices are meant to record and monitor our physiology and feed this information back to us. There's more intricate devices that monitor heart rate variability. So how our heart changes from second to second, our respiration, our skin conductance, and our skin temperature. This is the kind of devices that therapists use in the therapy room. And these devices, the reason that the way that they use it is to as an adjunct to therapy. So they use it for things such as chronic pain. So I have experience using it for individuals with chronic pain. They use it for individuals with disorders of the gut and brain interaction, individuals with anxiety, depression, and they even use it with athletes, right? So the whole purpose of this is to kind of help individuals become more in tune with their internal experience while they're describing or thinking of certain situations. So essentially, really building a connection between the mind and body connection, understanding how the mind can affect the body. So, for example, with this, I would say with chronic pain, since that's the one I have a lot of experience with, some individuals, when they experience chronic pain, they might tense up, right? And they might not be aware of this tension, but it's a defense mechanism that comes pretty natural. So using biofeedback, they can attach progressive muscle relaxation or EMGs to see how these individuals' muscles are tensing up in certain parts of the body. So through breathing training and relaxation training, they can focus on that part of the body and kind of consciously relax it so that they don't continue to feed that chronic pain, that area of their body that is continuously struggling or being fed that tension. So, some other things that they've used it for, there was a study by Dahl and colleagues, and what he did was he invited a bunch of women from a yoga studio, from a yoga class, and these women had different experiences based on their trauma. So some of them had trauma in their childhood, and some had come from recent experience of domestic violence, and so they had pretty recent trauma. And a control group had no significant trauma to report. And so what he did is he put these individuals on a stationary bike and he had them ride the bike for 5 minutes. And what he really looked at was how they recovered from the stress of the bike. And so what he found was that the individuals that were reporting history of adverse childhood experiences, so trauma during their childhood, they were able to recover, but not as good as the individuals that didn't report any significant trauma. And then lastly, the women that had came out of recent domestic violence relationships with domestic violence, their recovery was far worse. They didn't come near their baseline. And the most significant part of this study is that none of these women had symptoms of PTSD. None of them met criteria for PTSD. So, although they were absent of symptoms of PTSD, these women's physiology was affected by their trauma.
Mm.
And so for my study, what I'm doing is I'm looking at trauma, chronic stress, and perceived discrimination, and how these three things could essentially affect our physiology and our biology in the long term. So, what I do in my study, I kind of replicate what Dal did in his study, and I have individuals ride a bike to elevate their heart, and I also play a video for them that discusses the current status of African Americans in the US. And after these videos, there's a recovery period where I record how their heart is able to recover. And so with heart rate variability, obviously when your heart is elevated, it's a sign of stress, but it also is able to collect data information showing based on how your heart is varying from beat to beat, which ones are being produced by a stress response as opposed from just a heartbeat that's relaxed that has no stress being influencing it. And so with that information, I'm seeing how, based on how individuals are responding on their surveys, how easy it is for them for their heart to recover or go back to baseline. And essentially, what I plan on doing is using statistics is to use a regression model, meaning that I kind of want to see how these three factors kind of weigh in on heart rate variability and if discrimination can increment over trauma. We know that stress is bad for the heart. We've heard it over and over how bad it is. And trauma is the second thing that comes in line because it's acute, but unlike stress that's chronic, it's not consistent, right? It's not consistently deteriorating our health. So trauma, most people recover from it. It's those certain individuals that can have PTSD where that trauma becomes a chronic stressor also. So what I'm trying to see is discrimination as something that can essentially be a chronic stressor if that's deteriorating the health of African Americans in the US. So that is what I'm trying to do. And so for my ask, I'm looking for Black African American individuals in the San Diego area who are willing to participate. The only two exclusion criteria is that you don't have any history, any history of significant respiratory or cardiac issues, right? So because that can definitely affect your heart rate variability. And so we want to make sure that it's not those things that are playing a part when we're trying to see how you're recovering. You only have to be 18 to 65, again, because the older you get, the younger you get, your heart changes. So these are the things that I'm looking for, and it'd be great if you can participate. It'll definitely help us push the literature forward in understanding what African Americans are going through on a daily basis and how their health is possibly being affected by the current climate we're living in. So if anybody could volunteer, it'd be great. I'd be super grateful. Uh, and I'd be more than honored to really push this information forward to really try to make a change.
So while we are allowing you time to kind of take it in and everything that he just talked about, please start putting in the chat, or you can raise your hand, some questions you may have from the whole presentation, because you already know that I have questions that we're going to go over. But if you have any questions from the presentation, whether that be, what is applied psychophysiology? How does it affect me? How, who can I talk to in regards to this in my area? As well as if you have any other questions about even the study, prior studies and current studies. So go ahead and start writing those in the chat. as well as you can come off mute if you want to. And it looks like Dr. SB would like to come off mute and ask a question. So go ahead.
With any research, and especially for your dissertation, can you share a little bit more about the future application of how you plan or how this can be planned to use it in the future?
Yeah. So my first idea, my first thought is that clinicians working with individuals that are African American, when they come into the therapy room, right, we give them assessments to see if they have any symptoms of depression, any symptoms of anxiety, and these things affect heart rate variability for sure. Sometimes they'll assess for trauma history and try to see if there's any symptoms of PTSD. Very rarely are they trying to measure how much discrimination African American experience in their lifetime. And so if we ignore that, first of all, and this individual doesn't have any trauma, right? They might think what's really wrong with this individual, what's wrong with their health, right? If the findings in this study come out significant, I think it would really train individuals to be more culturally competent and take it more serious than possibly some don't. That's maybe more serious than it should, so that not only to help them inform their treatment in the therapy room, but also probably possibly refer to a medical doctor to get their health checked because it could possibly be affecting their heart and deteriorating their physiology and biology.
Wonderful. Did that answer your question?
Yes. My other question would be, in this current climate that we have, can that potentially be a negative, considered negative effect with the way that they're looking at DEI and everything?
For sure. That's that was a big push for me to go in this approach, just because discrimination isn't just in an interpersonal level, it's in a systematic level, right? So the way that I ask about discrimination, I ask about it in the academic setting, in the work setting, in the public realm, and even in just hearing statements from individuals, right? So discrimination can come in a lot of different forms. And so at the end of the day, we can't just think, oh, that it looks one way. And the perceived part of it is because sometimes you can just have an experience with an individual and think like, hey, this person is discriminating on me. But there's also systematic levels where it's pretty objective. It's pretty black and white. It's written in the law sometimes. So this all it does is add more stress to these individuals. And so the stress at the end of the day is what is essentially affecting our health.
Excellent. Thank you so much for those two questions. We have another question. How do you separate current stress from chronic stress, especially in African American women?
So, um, I'll start by saying this. Stress is essentially not a bad thing, right? So when we go work out, we stress our bodies out, right? So stress essentially is not a bad thing. It's when we're stuck in it, right? And just when you work out, it's more importantly the way you recover, right? And all that's doing is really creating a flexible autonomic nervous system, which is what we want. And that's exactly what heart rate variability is measuring, right? A flexible heart shows a flexible autonomic nervous system, a system that can go into stress and can come right out of it. The example I've been giving a lot of people in my study is that imagine you're going to a friend's birthday party and you get stuck in traffic. The traffic is annoying, your heart accelerates, your breathing becomes choppy and short, and so your heart's racing. And then you get to the party. If your autonomic nervous system is not flexible, you're going to kill the whole vibe, right? You're going to be stressed out at the party. You're not able to relax. You're not able to come down from that stress. And so you're stuck in that zone. And that's essentially what's affecting our hearts, right? When it's chronic, when it won't go away, it little by little starts breaking down our biological processes because the rest and digest, the whole purpose of it is to help us recover, right? To help cells duplicate, to help the food digest, to help our bodies continue to live healthily. But if we stay in that stress response, we don't allow our body space and time to do the necessary processes so that we can handle future stress. So I want to make sure I answered the question. The current stress, if you think about current stress, it's the stress that's happening right now. And at some point, you got to get out of it, right? And so when we think about mental stress, we can essentially be in our minds ruminating about things and producing mental stress that affects our biology. And so that is the point of psychophysiology, right? Those mental processes. So, what are you mentally thinking about? What are you mentally stressing about? And can you put it away for a little bit so you can actually give yourself some space to breathe, some time to relax? And so, ruminating, having anxious thoughts, all these things can affect our biology. And that is the science of psychophysiology, how those things can become pretty chronic and essentially start deteriorating our health. So a lot of thing around a lot the short answer to kind of work on that is mindfulness, right? Bringing ourselves to the present moment, feeling our body. Is my heart racing? Is my breath short? Do I need to take slower breaths, right? So coming back to that present moment, because sometimes our mental stress puts us somewhere else where currently there's nothing really happening. We can actually relax right now. There's no lion, there's no bear attacking us. We can catch our breaths, right? And then let our body repair so that we can go back into the fight and we can fight stronger. But if we keep wearing down, we tear our bodies apart and then we have no body to actually do the work. So that's the short answer. So I hope I answered that question.
Well, you definitely answered it for me, and I think it was a great question. I mean, I think, in medicine, we talk about chronic is probably 6 months or more, and, acute is less than 6 months. But clearly, there's a, difference when we're talking about applied psychophysiology as well, is being able to get out and recover. So you mentioned a couple of wonderful like things that we do here in Viva Life. So one, mindfulness. I think before we even got on the call today, just to let you all know, we take mindfulness moments, meaning that we take those 3 deep breaths and we center ourselves before we even start the conversation so that we can be in the same place and the same on the same mode as each other. Because like you said, you don't want to come in because you've either been driving or having a technology issue, and then you just blow your whole presentation or your whole experience walking into the room because you haven't taken that time to step back and just take those deep breaths and feel like what's going on. I wanted to go back to the heart rate variability because, as you said, I have my accoutrement on, and I'm not promoting anybody unless they have some affiliation here with Viva Life, but I do have my accoutrement on, and I love looking into it. I mean, you can do the basic where you just see how many calories, how many steps and stuff, but they have also added the heart rate variability. And I was trying to look for my screenshots of my heart rate variability because sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not so good. So I'm trying to figure out how is it that I improve this heart rate variability, because like you said, that could be an example of me not recovering from stress well. So can you just kind of give us some insight on that if we are looking at our heart rate variability and it's potentially all over the place, things that we can do to help improve that?
Yeah, so I'll start off by saying devices. So heart rate variability, there's a lot of metrics to it. There's a lot of ways to kind of measure heart rate variability. You can measure the balance between your stress and rest. You can measure how much activity or rest or parasympathetic side of your heart rate variability takes over. So the thing is that a lot of devices use a lot of different metrics. So there's not only one way to measure heart rate variability.
Hmm.
Um, like for example, I have an Aura ring, and so this one looks at RMSSD, which is the root mean square of successive differences. And that measurement actually measures how much parasympathetic activity your body is engaging in. So the rest and digest. It doesn't really focus on the stress, just the rest and digest. And so the way our sympathetic nervous system kind of works, people think it's like one's off, one's on, one's off, and it's not like that. Normally, we're always in the parasympathetic state. Our stress response overrides it. And then we got to figure out a way to quiet it down so that the parasympathetic can be dominant again. But in the current climate, in the way we work, the rat race of being an American, we are on stress a lot of times, right? And so if we don't figure out ways to quiet it down, it could become pretty chronic. And so some ways that I could suggest how to increase heart rate variability exercise and diet are huge. Exercise, diet, and sleep, right? Those are the big three. Staying active, right? Again, it is a way of initiating that stress response and then the way you recover, right? So the way you eat and you rest. So that is really creating variability in your heart rate, in your stress system. And so that creates a body that is aware and is familiar with stress, being stressed out and then coming out of it, right? So that's what the exercise does. It's intentional stressing so that we can intentionally come off of it.
Mm.
When we're sleeping, right? So that's when our heart goes to our lowest points in terms of heart rate variability. And that's when our body does most of the repair, right? So that's kind of the opposite of exercising. Exercising is when we turn our stress on. Sleep is when we try to get the most from our recovery side. And for sleep, a lot of people struggle. So it's really about getting a really good bedtime routine so that you can start signaling to the body like, hey, it's time to sleep. What I do every night around like 8:30, I'll make some tea. That warm water tells my body to start relaxing. Sometimes if it's been a long day, I'll put some melatonin. And then when I go to bed, I play these things called yoga nidras. You can YouTube it. Yoga nidras are body scans essentially. So someone's just talking and they're going through your body. They're telling you body parts and you're consciously focusing on that body part while you're breathing so you can notice how it feels so you can just intentionally relax it before going to bed. People think, oh, well, I get enough sleep. Sometimes we can go to sleep with a lot of stress in our body. And so if we prepare our bodies better for sleep, we get deeper sleep. There's a study for the individuals that have done my study. I actually talk about it, where they looked at perceived racial discrimination in African Americans and their heart rate variability while they were resting. And so the individuals with higher level of perceived racial discrimination, their heart rate variability couldn't really get past 60. So mine on the average night goes to 49-50. These individuals couldn't go past 60. And so the way that I interpret that is that these individuals are so on guard that even when they're sleeping, they really can't let it go so their body can do what it needs to do to recover, right? And so the analogy I use is like a car and an oil change. We're supposed to change our oil every 3 to 6 months. But if you take a year to change that oil, that car is going to break down a lot faster, right? So it's about being intentional about our recovery and our stress. And so these two things really intentionally create variability in our heart. And the more you create it, the more the body and the mind and the heart starts to learn, oh, I can go up and I can come down. I can come down and I can go up, right? Because we still want both those processes, right? We want you to be able to activate if there is a stress, if there is danger, but we also want you to come off of it just as easily.
Oh, this is so good. You are you are all up in the alley and I love it. I love it. I love it in the lane. So thank you so much for answering that question. So essentially what my understanding is that you want your heart rate variability to have that heart rate variability so that you can recover from the stressors. So you can have highs and lows, but
Yeah.
you want to be able to recover. So I love hearing that. And you know what? I remember when people, tell me, oh, the saying, sleep when you die. And I'm thinking to myself, because I'm gonna die sooner because I
Yeah,
didn't sleep.
that's true. Yeah.
So that was one of the things I wanted to ask about because there is a psychologist that excuse me, Dr. Geronimus, that talks about weathering. And one of our Viva Lifers brought it to our attention. Talks about weathering in maternal in groups, right? And I also think, and essentially what it is the systemic racism, discrimination, prejudice that women of color, brown women experience, and how that affects negatively their cardiovascular system, hypertension, hypertension, as well as having problems with preeclampsia and all the things, mental health issues as well. So the work that you're doing is really going beyond just the pregnancy state and is extending to the prior pregnancy, post pregnancy, so we can actually get a timeline for women if your findings are consistent, showing that discrimination, prejudice, racism could potentially be causing us to have worse outcomes in our lives and experiencing these disease processes earlier than other people? Yes or no? I know that was a long statement, but
Yeah, and I'll just throw this part in. I picked discrimination, but when I picked it, I didn't think racism in specifically, right? That's what I'm looking at. But there's also sexism as discrimination and how that could be affecting the heart, right? It's any type of discrimination, it's stress from the social environment. And so these things can add up and pile up. And when you look at Black women, they're in an intersection, right? They got twice as much as discrimination as just being a Black male. So these things can pile up and add on, right? So if I find that discrimination can increment over trauma, I'm going to try to see if different types of discrimination actually start to add up too, right? Or is it just discrimination in general? So yeah, these things, if you know, if found, they could be pretty intricate in terms of the heart because the heart's affected by so many things. And so, we know it's affected and we know it's an important thing, but we don't really give it too much consideration as what specifically is affecting the heart. We kind of throw general things at it, stress generally, but what kind of stress and is there stress that's worse than the other, right? So, yes, for sure.
wonderful. Thank you. We have about 2 minutes left, but I think we have time for one more question. So you can come off mute. I just asked you to come off mute and then ask your question, please.
Okay, it's more just I put a question in the chat, but it's more just now adding to what Gomez just said. And that's a fact, like even in the workforce, if you are in a predominantly male-oriented profession like us for engineering and architecture, that creates a lot of discrimination in ways that most people aren't aware of. So I was just being in agreement with that, that discrimination is across a lot of different areas.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, for sure, 100%. Women in the workforce where it's male dominant, people don't think about it, right? And if it's a easy job, right? They would think if you have chronic stress from work and it's an easy job, they would be like, why is your job so stressful, right? But it's the work environment with the peers that you're working with and the situations that you're in and the additional stress you're getting. That's not actually from the occupation, it's from the social interactions that you're in. So, yes, that is definitely something I am thinking about seeing, but I'm gonna try to get this PhD first.
I love that. So, just real quick, if you could tell our listeners one or two things that they could do right now
Okay.
to improve their psychophysiology. What is one or two things that they could do right now? And then after that, tell us how to get in touch with you so that we can send this information to people that we know live in San Diego or surrounding areas, unless somebody wants to fly in, hey, so that we could complete this research project with you.
So I was trying to look for I give my participants a sheet where it talks about diaphragmatic breathing. So diaphragmatic breathing is belly breathing, right? And so belly breathing is a great way to really help your lungs perform its job. So the diaphragm's whole purpose is to open up your lungs so you can get all the oxygen in, but more importantly, push the CO2, the carbon dioxide out of our body that's sitting in our body. And so I help individuals find something called resonance frequency using diaphragmatic breathing, which is a pace that creates heart rate variability by just your breathing. So if you are interested, look up anything on diaphragmatic breathing, and doing that practice can be very beneficial just because not only is it helping also create heart rate variability, but it also helps create some mindfulness. It helps create an intimate relationship with your breathing, right? We know we're breathing every day, every second of our lives, we're always breathing. But having an intimate relationship with your breathing gives you a foundation to always come back to when the stress is too high, right? So coming back to that can give you a practice where you can start today and at any moment where you can kind of work on getting your your autonomic nervous system to be more flexible by coming back from that stress, right? So sometimes we've been so habituated to being stressed that we forget how to relax. So using that diaphragmatic breathing practice can really help us learn how to relax our bodies and calm back down. And if you want to reach me, you can reach me at my email, Alberto Gomez12@alliant.edu. I also have my link information on the Instagram post that was sent out. I'll also put in the chat. I'll put in the link to the scheduler if you're interested. I'll pull that up in a second. But yes, you can reach me there at that email. And I hope some of you are interested in participating, because I definitely need some more people. So
And so tell us when the research project closes, and tell us how many people you need.
So the research closes when I'm done, because it's for my graduation, right? So I got to keep going. My goal was to essentially collect everybody by May 1st, but if I don't, I got to keep going. The whole reason for the May 1st deadline was because I am starting an internship at the Brooklyn VA this summer. So I'll be going to Brooklyn. So I'm hoping to collect all my data before I do. And currently I am sitting on 63 participants out of 80. So we're getting there, but I get a lot of rescheduling, I get a lot of cancellations, and I understand a lot of, people have lives. So I appreciate anyone that's actually able to make it out. So if you can make it out, please schedule and show up. And if you can't show up, just send me a text so I don't drive up there and wait for somebody that's not gonna come.
Thank you. Thanks, Cheryl, for putting the email in the chat. So, future Dr. Alberto, we're already claiming this for you. We know that it's going to happen for you. You're going to get the number of participants you need in the month of May, preferably earlier than later. I myself will be signing up after this discussion as well. And I'm already putting it out to all my social media. So we want to make sure that we have researchers that have our best interests in mind, and this is how we can support that. That being said, Viva Lifers, we focus on meditation, journaling, exercise, optimizing our nutrition, hormones, and our sleep. And I do believe that our future applied psychophysiologist, Dr. Alberto Gomez, will approve as well. Anything else that we have to add, we will send it out to you through your registrations. We've put links in the chat. Please go ahead and forward this out to as many people as possible so that we can all continue to improve our healthcare profile. We absolutely adored having this conversation with you. And thank you, everybody, for asking the questions. And thank you, future Dr. Alberto Gomez, for being on with us. You are now one of our official Viva Life guests and soon-to-be members. Have a wonderful day. And don't forget to do what? Viva Life.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you for being a part of the Viva Life experience. I'm Dr. Kelly OMD, board certified OBGYN and healthcare executive. If you like what you heard, then please go ahead and like, share, and subscribe. The reason why is because we are trying to educate, encourage, and inspire 1 million people to live their healthiest and wealthiest life. And this is what we're bringing you. We're bringing you educational videos. We're bringing you podcasts. We are bringing you webinars with subject matter experts, including myself, about the topics that affect you the most. So go ahead, like, subscribe, and share. We are everywhere. Have a wonderful day. Viva Life.